Okay. Starting with roll, we've got Chair Sneddon,
Here.
Vice Chair Wiscombe,
Here.
Commissioner Drury, Commissioner House, Commissioner Reed,
Here.
Commissioner Longstreet,
Here.
Councilmember Harmon,
Here.
Commissioner Perry, Committee Member Peterson,
Here.
and Committee Member Edelman. Okay, that's it for roll today.
Thank you. And do we have any announcements today?
Yes, Madam Chair, we do. Real quick, Roger Perry has moved outside of the city of Santa Barbara and so is no longer on the Parks and Recreation Commission. And they're meeting on the 17th of November. They will be appointing his replacement for this committee.
Excellent, thank you. And then I will announce.
I would just like to say that Chair McGill of the Parks and Recreation Commission is signed on to this meeting and observing.
Excellent, welcome, Ms. McGill. And I will announce that I have a teaching conflict at, I'll have to leave by 10:30 at the latest, probably 10:15. And then Vice Chair Wiscombe will take over the meeting from there. And with that, do we have any agenda changes?
No, Madam Chair, no changes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hess. And I will say about the agenda, we have a couple items that we've been, well, one, the traffic circulation patterns that we've been waiting for results on. And the other that some of us might not have been aware of, I know that I was not aware of the public outreach, and we'll just look at that as a touch point of extra information as we're moving along. And we won't really debate what questions might have been on there. I think it was well received and answered, and we'll just talk about the results of those and if there's more information that we need on that. And then we will do questions and public comment after each individual item as presented. So with that, Mr. Hess, if you'd like to take it over.
Great, thank you very much. And Leaf is going to share his screen. I have a frog in my throat, so my apologies in advance. So thank you, everyone. Welcome. The agenda for the day, as Chair Sneddon just alluded to, if we could have the next slide. We're going to go over briefly just the community input results and a summary of those results. We will go through the parking and traffic study that was done this summer. And then we will show you the updated plans and discussion of the design features. So next slide, please. So for context, why did we do this and why now? So as the community continues to open up from the pandemic and the substantial changes to State Street that have brought a lot more people downtown, we thought it would be beneficial to touch base with the larger community to provide input on the current design. And it won't be the last time this happens, but as there will be for sure future efforts to provide community input. But this questionnaire ran for about 2 weeks. Ran for 2 weeks in October. We received 532 responses. And in addition to the answered questions, we had 342 people that also offered commentary on what else they would like to share with us, which was very, very helpful. We'll go over those results in a minute. Next slide, please. So 85%, here's just the summary, 85% of the respondents see the changes to State Street complementing the goals for the plaza. A majority of the respondents wanted just activities taking place at the plaza, having people there, including festivals and events, music, entertainment and concerts, leisure activities such as strolling and sitting. 36% of the respondents live in the downtown area. Shopping, dining, and recreation, no big surprise, were the top 3 reasons for people to come downtown. 44% thought that a guided tour, the one that would be that we've talked about before, would benefit elementary schools, visitors, and residences. And if I may add that once we add the art and the historical interpretations elements within the plaza from the Historic Landmarks Commission, we're anticipating that this percentage may increase. And lastly, the 2/3 rated revitalizing the plaza as significant to extremely significant. So definitely something that is on people's minds that needs to be done. Next slide, please. So here are the visuals that were accompanying the questions. On the lower left is the arcade. You have the view of the water feature with Casa de la Guerra and City Hall in the background in the upper right. And then the landscape, the existing landscape in the bottom, in the middle on the bottom, with the proposed type of landscaping that we are thinking for the front of City Hall. Next slide, please. So as I said before, there were 342 people that had additional comments, and these comments equated to a total of 501 topical comments, as shown in this summary. The primary issue, as you can see on the left, the primary issue raised was homelessness, and the concern that if this issue isn't dealt with, that we'll just really be providing a cleaner, more beautiful space for this population. This was followed by positive comments indicating an overall liking of the concept plan. The water feature and the disliking of this idea came next. But I want to point out that almost 60% of the people that said they didn't like the water feature didn't like it because it was due to either being a waste of water or because we're in a drought. Excuse me. I just want to remind everyone that this will be a low volume water feature, what's being proposed. It will be on a filtered loop system so that really the only water loss would be through evaporation. And I understand that it may appear inconsistent with our perspective on water consciousness, but it's actually very water conscious as a system. So the other major topics were to keep the historic feel, to facilitate celebrations, and to have an outdoor market. And there were some respondents still were thinking that this was the proposed location for the farmers market, and it's not. But overall, comments were very constructive and overall positive. So next slide, please. So the takeaways were that we're on the right track. This is a needed and wanted revitalization. We need to continue to refine the plans to respond to the constructive comments that were received. And the concerns, such as the responsible water use or homelessness, have been noted. So with that, this is the first topic. So Chair Snedden, I'd like to turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. And then I will say that we've switched our format to the Zoom format. And one of the very best features, in my view, of the Zoom format is the raise hand feature. And maybe if you could all just click on the raise hand, I'll do mine as well. So it's down at the bottom of your screen, and excellent. And then also how to lower your hand is to click it again. And what the raise hand feature does is put you in order at the top of the screen of the order that people raised hands in. So this will help, I think, with our going around and seeing if there are any questions and keeping us in order. So at this point, are there any questions from the committee? Okay, and then Vice Chair Wiscombe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This would just be for Mr. Hassan. It's probably maybe more of a comment than a question, but the photo that you showed for the water feature was on, and I think did people understand first of all that the water feature is at grade and that it will not operate all the time. Was that clear in the questionnaire? Because I think, people think, oh, it's going to be on all the time. And, we all know that that's not the plan.
That's a great question. I would say the short answer is that it wasn't crystal clear because some assumed, some understood that it would be programmed to be on and off and not on all the time. And some raised that question. So let's clarify that it would be programmable so that when there are events in the plaza that would conflict with having water on, that we would be able to turn it off.
That's great. I think that needs to be made clear to the public, and also if it's a really cool cloudy day, it's probably not going to be on either. We're anticipating it'll be on during hot weather, summer days. I think that was kind of the gist of our discussion on the water feature originally.
Agreed. And I will say it also provides a great white noise background. So there may be events or things that we want that to happen, even though maybe the weather isn't cooperating.
Great. Thank you for that answer.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can anybody hear me?
Hello, Mr. Drury. Yes.
Oh, you can. Oh, good Lord. This is my first Zoom meeting. Well, congratulations, Ms. Sneddon.
Thank you, Mr. Drury.
And I didn't go on my trip, as I told Mr. McKay, because I had a heart attack.
Oh, dear.
I had a heart attack a week ago tomorrow, 2 weeks ago tomorrow. So I'm on the mend, and I'm glad to be talking to everybody, as you can imagine.
We're glad for you to be here to be talking to everyone.
Me too.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Drury.
I'll be quiet.
And just quickly, so that you're aware, there's a raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. So anytime, are you able to see it, or are you?
Let me see. I don't have that. I've got
There's a big red button that
participants and
says.
share content.
It says.
I saw that yellow raised hand that everybody. I don't see it on my.
Okay, next to a big green button that says share screen. There's.
Oh, here it is. I got it.
Mhm.
I have it. Yes. Okay.
Okay. So whenever
Thank
you
you.
want to speak, just use your raise hand feature, and then we can keep track.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. We're happy to see you here.
You too.
I will ask the additional question, Mr. Hess. I think I asked you this before, but who did the survey go out to, and in what format was it sent out? And just so that we're all aware of how the public was reached.
So the great question, Chair Sneddon, thank you. It was sent out through City News in Brief was one avenue. So whoever subscribes to that received that announcement and link. It was sent out in our email blast, which is for any of the subscribers to that are interested in this project who have subscribed to that. It was sent out on the city's Instagram and Twitter social media feeds as well. And then Ed Hat picked it up, and there were multiple people that followed the link through Ed Hat to answer the survey.
Thank you. And then I would just make the comment there that when a survey goes out, it might be good to take out an ad in the Independent or in a News Hawk is good, but so that people can see what's being asked as well. Okay, and welcome, Mr. Howes. Okay, any comments from the public?
So if anyone from the public would like to speak, please raise your hand. I will then unmute you and ask you to unmute yourself. Okay, I don't see any raised hands as of right now, so I think we can move forward.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for presenting these results to us. I think we've gone a long way in this, and it's helpful to have a checkpoint. So thank you, Mr. Hess, and on to the next item.
Thank you, Chair Sneddon. I'm going to turn it over to Leif McKay from RRM to walk us through the next topic.
Good morning. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. It's good to be here on a Monday morning instead of our Friday morning usual time slot. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about traffic and parking. If you recall, when the first street closure was discussed and generally supported by the committee, there was a desire to have a little more data before, just so we can all, and the committee particularly, can make an informed decision about big decisions like street closure and changing patterns. So we have done that. We are in 2019, the original study was, and in July of this year, we, as we started to emerge and becoming more active downtown, we had some extra work done down in the plaza. Our consultants, our sub-consultants did a in-person observation of where people were coming and going to and what types of vehicles they were bringing to the plaza. So they really focused on three things: the volume and types of vehicles, the destinations, and the parking. The diagram on the right was basically the different things they looked at in terms of where people were coming and going to, and various things like that. So we'll start with just the summary of what their findings were on the volume. In 2021, so a couple of months ago now, you can see that day to day it varies, but around about 2,000 to 2,500 cars every day in the project area, which would be De La Guerra Street between State and Anacapa and the Plaza Loop. And daily on weekdays, about 30 delivery trucks, and that's mostly the sort of the UPS, FedEx, some food service trucks, that type of thing. A good percentage, around about half, a little around half the vehicles entered the plaza, circled and exited, so that people pull in looking for a space and leave again when they can't find a space. And then lastly, if you look at pre-COVID versus now with State Street closed, we see a significant reduction in the volume of traffic in the plaza, presumably because people can't turn in from State Street. So weekday mornings was the biggest reduction, as you can see, 60%, 15% in the afternoons, and 20% on Saturdays. Destinations, this was interesting, that they basically set up in the plaza and just observed where people went after they parked in the project area. And this is quite telling. You can see on the left, you have a graph for weekdays, and on the right, weekends. I know it's a little fuzzy, I apologize for that, but I think it's still legible for everyone. So you can see weekdays and weekends, a huge majority of people that park in the project area, De La Guerra Street and Plaza, are actually parking and then heading to State Street, the State Street corridor somewhere. And then there's a little more retail activity on weekdays, as you can tell. About a little more than a quarter of the people are doing other things, going to City Hall, El Paseo, the restaurants and shops, and so forth. And then on weekends, it's much, much less than that. So huge percentage of people are actually going to State Street. This is a look at the parking lot peak occupancy. So if we look at the city lots 2, 9, and 10 combined, which are the other parking garages within 2 blocks of our site, and that serve the State Street corridor. We got the counts from the city's parking folks, and the picture that it tells is that there's a lot of capacity within 2 blocks of our project. You can see 2019 numbers in that sort of second column from the left. 2021, it's much less, 26% less, Monday through Thursday, 30% down on Friday, etc., which equates, just in terms of numbers, to hundreds of available spaces on any given day. Brad, I think you were going to mention something.
Yeah, and Leaf, if I could interject here. I just want to make sure that everyone remembers that as part of the police station project, the Coda commuter parking lot, this will eventually be closed once the police station is confirmed to be going there. And while we don't know all of the numbers, we've been assured from downtown parking that lot 10 should have the capacity to absorb both those displaced from the Coda lot as well as the additional cars from this location. So I just wanted to clarify that because I know it's probably going on in someone's brain out there. Thanks, Lee.
So just to summarize the last few slides and the results of the updated traffic analysis, most people are parking in the plaza heading to State Street. There's ample capacity within a 2-block radius of the project site to absorb any lost spaces in the plaza. And delivery vehicles do need to be accommodated in some way. That was one of the interesting things because it's quite a busy hub for coming and goings of commercial vehicles. So we realize that is something we have to have a good solution for, and we're working on that. And short-term parking is desirable and necessary next to City Hall. And I think you've already seen some of our plans for the Anacapa end of De La Guerra Street, but I'll show you those in a minute as well. So that's a rapid summary of the new traffic findings, and that is the end of this section. If I hand it back to Chair Snedden.
Thank you. And we have a question from Mr. Reed.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Snedden. I was curious if some of the housing policy changes downtown have been considered in the study, with Lot 10 in particular, absorbing the Coda commuter parking. Lot 10 is also kind of the targeted lot for 24/7 residential parking permits for new housing projects that don't require parking. A block away on Chapala and Ortega, a 30-unit project was just approved without parking. Have these been considered in the study?
Commissioner Reed, no, that was not included in this study. But thanks for the heads up on that. I actually wasn't aware that those were those units were for Lot 10. So we'll just make sure that we're keeping track of this, because obviously that impacts the numbers to some degree. Does it overwhelm it? Probably not, because Lot 10 currently has a lot of capacity, but there are the more needs that come from different locations that aren't being coalesced into one source. That's when we start getting into problems. So thank you.
Okay, and then Mr. Hess has, looking at those pretty dramatic reductions from 2019 to 21, does the study assume that they're going to stay at the reduced levels, or does it assume they'll go back to 2019 levels?
So we didn't make a speculation on whether they were going to, what they were going to do. We were just studying what they are. So I don't know the answer. I think if we had a crystal ball, it'd be great, because then we could, obviously we could plan for it. We don't know what's going to happen with State Street, and I think that alone will help, will probably dictate what those numbers end up looking like. You know, if it remains closed, then maybe they will stay the same. But if certain sections open up, that could have an impact on these numbers as well.
Okay, yeah, my comment would be, I think it's probably most practical to just assume 2019 numbers and then add the Coda lot on top of that, add the 24/7 residential permits on top of that. And it's not just for Lot 10. I think that would be a good question for transportation to see which lots qualify and which projects are in the pipeline.
I will add a question here too, not seeing any other hands. So as we go if anybody also has questions. So I was also wondering about the changes to State Street and the circulation patterns as a whole, and if we even are able to look at this as an isolated pattern, aside from that, with all of the changes. And then just a general question about the pedestrian flow. I think part of what we've been talking about is people parking and having reason to walk across the plaza as a way to activate the space. And so I suppose I have a question also about sort of the pedestrian circulation. If people coming to State Street are being accommodated at other lots and other places, will there be reason to cross the plaza and discover it that way? Just sort of a question that I have there. And then one more question about, I've heard the idea that maybe portions of State Street, and this is where it all ties in together too, might be open in the mornings for delivery and then in the afternoon be closed, that kind of thing, and how that might also impact the traffic area here, or what is our possible takeaway from this traffic study when it's isolated from the rest of the whole changes to the circulation pattern?
So I'll take a stab if you don't mind, Leif. Let me address just the deliveries portion of it, because you were saying that that would require obviously coordination with State Street, the State Street master plan, and sort of a policy of where that committee ends up landing on the use of State Street in the mornings for that. As you know, for the underground trash enclosures as part of this project, that's a really important aspect for us, for State Street to be able to be used for picking up trash, recycling, and food scraps. So we have been in contact and in communication consistently with Tess Harris, who is the State Street master planner, as well as Jason Harris, and they understand that is one of the things that we are after as part of their design. With respect to deliveries and how State Street will be used, currently that is used to some degree. I don't know all of the details, but we know that they have to have the fire life safety clearances for fire trucks to be able to go up State Street, because that's just going to be a requirement. So how we utilize that and what flexibility we have within those parameters to for deliveries, for trash, all of those things need to be figured out. But that is our hope that would be possible. So that's the first one. In terms of the patterns of circulation, not just vehicles, but pedestrians. So we're currently actually having our parking and transportation division do a full review of our plan right now for De La Guerra Plaza. And part of that is it's isolated for what this project requires and needs, and what impacts, or what do the new traffic patterns look like. So that's one aspect of this, and then it relates to the whole, of course, of the closure of State Street. That information will be shared for sure, and we want to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to keep vehicles moving, keep them parked, have people access State Street, all of those things. With respect to the pedestrian part, if they're parking in one of the lots, are those the same people, I think is what I would ask, that walk through the plaza. If they're the same people, obviously that's going to change their walking pattern. My speculation would be that those would be different people. Is that the people that are walking through State Street are actually coming from businesses, walking from the area through the plaza, and will continue to do so. At least that's our hope. We want to make it more interesting than it is now, so that they would like to walk through. So does that answer all your questions?
It does. Thank you.
Okay.
And then I see, Mr. Reed, is your hand still up? Otherwise, I see Vice Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Drury.
Sorry, no, it's down.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Wiscombe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My only question, and I just don't remember, do we have bicycle parking at the plaza? Are we accommodating bicycles there? I don't remember seeing that on the plan.
We
Hess?
absolutely will, and we do not have that in the plan yet. Those,
Okay,
that's one of those refinements that, like, we don't have water fountains, and we don't have where we're going to put the trash containers, and we have a lot of smaller, more facilities related things that will absolutely be in the plan.
okay. And you're working with transportation in terms of the required number of bicycle parking spaces that will be needed. Is that correct?
So, Vice Chair Wiscombe, the required bicycle parking will probably be a number that's more directed from the Public Works Director rather than a number based on occupancy or anything like that, because it's an open area. So our goal is to make sure that we're facilitating enough spaces, not just to accommodate the public, but obviously for future where people want to come for events. We've been considering and talking through what it would look like for e-bike charging stations. I mean, there are a lot of different options that go within that category that we're definitely considering and trying to figure out also what the best space for is.
Okay, thank you for that. So are then these are what I would all call site furnishings, whether it's, bike racks, charging stations, benches, water fountains, they're all site furnishings. Will these all be presented to HLC and then they'll make the decision? Is that correct? Okay,
That's correct.
that's all I want to know. So we've got our bases covered. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Drury.
Yes, thank you. Hello, Brad. I apologize for saying I wasn't going to be here, and I'm glad I'm here, actually.
I'm glad you're here too.
Yeah, it was an interesting couple weeks. So the adjacent to City Hall parking, I don't think I got that on the map. Is that just those sort of slant-in spaces between Anacapa and the beginning of City Hall, the walkway in the back?
So yes, what we're planning on are some spaces off of Anacapa Street that will come in, and then they will be 90-degree parking facing City Hall.
And then there'll be bollards between that and any access to the plaza itself?
Correct.
Okay.
We will also have either retractable or temporary bollard positions also at Anacapa Street to be able to close off the entire plaza for larger events.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Are there any other questions?
If I may add one more thing, Chair Sneddon, with respect to the short-term parking, is several people brought up as part of the survey that I ended up being able to follow up with, which was the ADA parking. And there's one accessible space currently in the plaza. What we have currently is in the street parking that was on Anacapa or on De La Guerra Street closer to Anacapa. What you'll see is we have one space there. And then the hope is that we would be able to, and this needs to be worked out. So please, unfortunately, you can't quote me on this, but the intent is to be able to use the ADA spaces that are in the City Hall parking lot. If those are available, to be able to use those. So that allows a really easy handicap and wheelchair access from the parking lot over to the De La Guerra side of City Hall at the ramp.
Thank you. And will we have plans to also run that by the accessibility committee?
Yes, absolutely.
So do we have public comment on this portion?
If anyone from the public would like to comment on this, please raise your hand. I will then unmute you and you will then unmute yourself. I don't see any hands raised at this moment.
Thank you. At this point, Mr. Hess, should we open it for general discussion about where we are and where we're heading, or is there a question you'd like to frame for us for that discussion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's actually up to you. We have these two informational topics that we've been discussing. I think where our questions lie, I think, are really in the plans and the next topic, that do we have enough information, and are those plans at a place where we want to take them to HLC, or do we need another meeting? So I think that's the question that we will be after at the end of this meeting.
Thank you. So let's be sure that we hear from everybody today on moving forward. So we've had these two checkpoints of information we've been looking for. And if we want to maybe go around and give our thoughts on whether this is ready for the next step, or what you might need to be able to recommend that it goes to the next step. And call on people if you're not, is there, but I do think it's important to hear from everyone whether we are good with the information presented or if we need more information. So Mr. Drury, your hand is up. And Mr. Drury? Let's go to Vice Chair Wiscombe until Mr. Drury's ready there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you really want to hear from all of us on the committee on whether we feel this is ready to go on the next steps to go on to HLC, or is that what you're asking us?
I believe so. Or if you think that there's something more that's needed before that point. If this was a checkpoint and our next step is HLC, do we feel that we're ready for that? And if you have another way to frame the question or more that you would like to know, I'm happy to hear it.
No, I'm fine. I think a thorough job's been done, and I'm all in favor of this moving on to HLC. I think that's where, there'll be some devil in the details, and that's where HLC will need to come in. So I'm in favor of moving it on.
Mr. Drury, are you back?
Yes, I am here, and I would agree with Ms. Wiscombe. I think we've done a lot of really good work, and I really enjoy and appreciate the summation by all the people working on this project. I think it should go to the Landmarks Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Reed?
Yes, I also agree. I think it's more than ready.
Thank you. And Ms. Longstreet?
It's ready to move forward. Also, the one issue I have a little concern about is I'm trying to digest Commissioner Reed's comments, excuse me, about the parking and the private development that's absorbing public parking. And it concerns me that that may come ahead of a public benefit project. So I just want to make sure that De La Guerra Plaza, which benefits our entire community, has the first use of that parking, that our projects in the future, somehow that is accommodated.
I agree, Commissioner Longstreet. And Dr. Peterson?
I also agree that it's ready to move forward, and I just want to say that I really appreciate that parking study. I think we've heard a lot of sort of anecdotal comments and assumptions throughout the process about who's parking there, who needs to park there, and this data is really valuable to show who's actually using it for parking, and that I think gives us a really good leg to stand on with changes, including removing a lot of those spots that the use of parking for State Street is easily accommodated elsewhere. So I appreciated that very much.
And you believe it's ready to move on then? Yes.
Yes, ready to move on.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember Harmon.
Thank you. Just adding to the chorus of agreeing that it's ready to move on. Thank you.
And I don't see a hand raised, but Commissioner Howes, did you have any comments?
No, I'm just an observer today.
I guess you'll be seeing it when it comes to HLC.
Exactly.
Yeah. It couldn't be this easy, could it? That we're ready. What would be our next steps in the process, Mr. Hess? So once this goes to HLC, will this committee be seeing it again, or what are our next steps?
Well, the next topic is on our agenda today is to show you the latest set of plans. And hopefully all of you feel the same as right now, that moving forward to HLC after you've seen those, but I believe you will. The next step is once HLC hears it, pending their reaction and their response, that will help us understand what needs to be done before we have a pre-application review team submittal, which is our first and initial application to the city. So then it will start the formal process. Currently, right now, we're still in concept phase, as you all know. So this is really just preparation for the real thing, if you will.
Thank you. And I think I was premature in asking the question before we saw the design. So I'll hand it back over to you, Mr. Hess. Thank you.
My pleasure. And I'm going to, in turn, hand it over to Leaf to walk us through the latest plans.
All right, thank you. This is the plan as it currently stands. This incidentally was the site plan that was shared in the questionnaire that went out recently, just so you can all see what everyone else saw. It encapsulates the whole project quite well, I think. Today, as Brad mentioned, we're just going to give you a little update on a couple of the design elements that we've been working on. It'll look fairly similar to you, I think. We've kind of been waiting anxiously to find out the results of the questionnaire just to see if we're in fact on the right track. So we've been making some small modifications, and we just want to get you up to date on those today. So it's the City Hall frontage, the arcade, and the restrooms will be the focus of the next few slides. So the arcade, this is a view that you're all familiar with. We've spent some time sort of adding some more architectural detail to it, just to show you how it could be detailed a little further than what we showed previously, which was essentially a massing model with some sort of a window on the gable and some lanterns on the column and column capitals and things like that. We showed you three options for the arcade at a previous meeting, if you recall. There was this one, there was one with square colonnades, and there was a third one which was more like a pergola or a trellis structure. And then as a result of that, and at the HLC as well, there was no interest in the square one, and there was some interest in this one or the trellis, and it was, there wasn't a clear consensus. So our design team considered all the input we got, and our recommendation is this one with the arched columns. We feel like it fits better with the plaza, and it's a more grounded structure than a trellis. It feels more integral and more of an homage to the previous buildings, because there was a building there at one point. So trellis felt a little too light, like too much of a light touch for the space, in our opinion. So it also really speaks well to one of the comments we got in the questionnaire, or one of the questions that we asked, which activities, like you can see the quote at the top, activities happening in the plaza is very supported, and we feel like this arcade just provides a perfect hub for much of that activity. So festivals, events, music, concerts, things like that. So you can see this provides a great venue for that. The stage that you can see with the little quartet on it is approximately the size of the Fiesta stage in terms of square footage. They could come in and put a big stage over the top of it that was more elevated, but just to give you a sense of scale. We did another perspective of it, because one of the things we felt like that previous view was doing was it was giving a slightly distorted perspective of how big this arcade was relative to City Hall. It's really not a huge structure. This shows it, you know, between City Hall and the News Press building, and it's in keeping with the architecture, but it's scaled down, so it's not overbearing in that space. And then we also showed this elevation of it, which really, again, emphasizes that it's a subordinate structure to City Hall, but it's clearly inspired by it. It also shows the separation. Some people thought that it was connected because of the view we had chosen. This also shows from front on how transparent the structure is, so it's quite light visually. One thing I wanted to point out is we've been toying with the idea of closing off the arches on either end just at the back arch. So it'd basically be like the back arch would be walled in, and that provides us for a couple opportunity for a couple of things. One is we have to put some utilities somewhere, and we thought we could tuck a new transformer for all the Plaza electrical behind one of them. And the other one would provide some good opportunities on the inside of the arcade for some historical interpretation and exhibit or some other historical feature. So that's the arcade. Public restrooms, Brad's going to weigh in on the ongoing work we're doing there.
Thanks, Lee. So as you know, we have been in discussions with the owner of 726 State Street. 725 right there is the Ironworks space. And we're trying to figure out if an arrangement can be made for potentially the restrooms and or the pump room for the water feature. But due to the fact that we're in negotiations, I can't really get into the details, but I just wanted to let you know that it is ongoing. And we are almost done with the appraisal of the building, which will then give us more information from which to work. So just wanted to give you a brief update.
Thanks, Brad. And then lastly, today, the City Hall frontage, just to refresh your memory that the purpose statement that's guiding our thought process there. We really want to just reconnect City Hall with the community again, I guess visually and also more at a philosophical level. So open it up, give it more presence to the street. It should be beautiful, sustainable, and welcoming. That complements the historic beauty of the building and provides a connection to the expanded plaza. Here's a zoomed in view of it. Probably looks quite similar to what you saw last time. I'll just run you through some of the basic bits and pieces here. This area changed a little bit. You'll remember we had some trees and some other things that the consensus was to remove them and open up the view from Anacapa. So we've got a low sandstone wall on that corner, which we imagine could have some City Hall signage sort of mounted on the face of it. That really is kind of a monumental kind of a sign. The flagpoles would be located directly behind it. Again, on that corner, it makes that corner quite civic and prominent feeling. We always have, that's the existing sort of pathway coming in off Anacapa. One of the committee members, I think it was committee member Drury, was suggesting formalizing a path coming in from De La Guerra as well. So we've added that. two primary paving types. The street itself is basically an extension of the Plaza treatment. So that's all at flush level surface in the same brick as the main field of the Plaza. And then a small sort of courtyard area out front would be a similar softer feeling material, similar to the Casa's courtyard, like maybe a stabilized decomposed granite or something of that nature. Talking about the parking, this addresses some of the questions we've heard previously, but we're proposing some 90-degree parking spaces short term that would primarily service City Hall, but also the short-term parking for De La Guerra Street businesses. One ADA space, and the balance would be provided in the existing lot on the other side of City Hall. And then at that bottom space, it's kind of a white square that would be designated as a commercial drop-off. So a delivery van could pull in there for 5-10 minutes and run out to wherever in the vicinity. There are bollards to control vehicular access. I'm just realizing I omitted to show some. So some are noted there at the top, right near Anacapa Street. There would be another series of bollards down closer to where the De La Guerra Street label is down here, so that the parking could remain open to the public during the week, and the plaza would still be closed. In terms of the landscape, that's the relocated palm tree proposed location that's currently in De La Guerra Plaza. And then there's several planting areas which would be the demonstration planting, an ornamental demonstration of sustainable plant material selections, similar to some of the character photos you saw earlier. Oop. So I'll stop there. That's a summary. That's a quick little walk around the few design features there that we've been working on and would like to polish up for HLC. Back to either Brad or Chair Snedden.
Thank you, Lee.
Mr. Hess, sorry.
So I just wanted to, just in summary, there are clearly some items within this plan that need HLC's direction. If there are specific areas that you feel like we need to focus in on in advance of going back to HLC, we'd like to understand what those are and like to hear your thoughts. If you feel like, you know what, we're ready to take this plan to HLC to let them figure out some of these different features with us, that's great too. We know that there are, as Vice Chair Wiscombe said, there are site furnishings that just need to be resolved, and we are in process of that, but that's not something that we're still trying to figure out the big issues within this design first. So with that, we'd love to hear your comments.
Thank you. And I see Mr. Drury's hand and then Vice Chair Wiscombe. Mr. Drury?
Yes, ma'am.
Your hand is up. Yeah.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, I think it's very straightforward. I think it opens up what we've needed to open up for quite some time on the east facing facade of City Hall. I'm in favor of it, and I think it should go to Landmarks Commission.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Wiscombe?
I'm in full agreement with Mr. Drury, and welcome, Mr. Drury. I'm glad that you sound strong and healthy. So
I feel strong and healthy.
Good. Yeah, I totally agree. You've all done a great job on this, and I think what's left is it's gonna need the tweaking at HLC. We can't do that. So I'm in full agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Reed?
I agree. I don't think another meeting for us is necessary before it goes to HLC. I did have a question on the parking. Assuming that all of those spaces are occupied, how would cars turn around to get back out onto Anacapa? What's the plan for that?
Good question. The idea here, you can't see my cursor, but I'm trying to show you on my cursor, but thank you. That's what I was pointing to. It's basically the commercial loading, unloading spot at the end. The goal is to, I mean, all of those are going to be flat. You're not going to have anything in between them. So presumably, even if there's a truck in that area, one would hopefully still have room to navigate either turning around and some of those things, we need to make sure of. It's a great point. If everything's packed, do we still have room to go in, turn around, and safely go back out? And we need to make sure of that.
Great.
Commissioner House.
I have, I guess, just one question. At the location of the flagpoles, I thought I turned my video on. There we go. At the location of the flagpoles and the low sandstone wall, there's a significant aloe specimen there. And there's been some concern about preserving that. And have you looked into whether that can be transplanted and where you might put it?
It's a great question, Commissioner House. We'd like to propose these kinds of details with HLC because there are a number of ways that we can go with this. We can take clippings from the aloe. It's a common aloe plant. Granted, it is a large and old aloe plant, but it is a common plant. As to its significance, we need to work with HLC to determine how significant it is. Can we take plantings and a beautiful picture of it and relocate plantings on site and commemorate it? Or is it something that HLC feels like has to stay on the corner? Right now, it's actually recovering. It's finally got some water, which is great, but it's been in dire straits for quite a while. So it's not nearly as lovely as it used to be, but we are well aware of the discussion. We're having it, and we'd like to work that detail out with HLC.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And then I will add, I still think this is ready for HLC. I'm not completely sold on the arcade. I will just add that as a comment. I'm not sure that building more in that space is necessary, and going back and forth, but I'm going to leave that to HLC's recommendation as well. We've sort of gone back and forth on the arcade, but I'll just say that as my comment. I think it is the will of this committee to move forward with the arcade, but I just wanted to add that one comment. And Commissioner Longstreet.
I think it's ready to go to HLC to work out some of the details. I'd like to see it come back to us with their recommendations. I would personally like the arcade. It makes it feel more intimate to me, the space, and I do appreciate that. So that's it.
Thank you. Are there any other comments at this stage? Dr. Peterson?
I just wanted to echo everyone else's support that it is ready to go to HLC, and I would also like to have the feedback come back to us so we can continue to chime in. Thank you.
Any other comments? This is a significant milestone to be at this point where we are in agreement and with the concept. And I'll say that I really like that it's gone down to the black and white sort of line drawing concept level, and having the input from the public at this stage is really welcome, and I think helps us know that we're on the right track. And it's really exciting that this could be going to HLC, and it's a this is meeting number 12 on our part, and really appreciate the work that's been done on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Me too. I really appreciate the work of this committee. It has been a pleasure. We're not done, of course, but it's been great. If I can, I agree that we should come back for with the feedback from HLC to this committee. I would also like to strongly request that you all show up to the HLC meeting, because it's extremely helpful for comments, questions that come up, for them to hear from you. Similar to our workshop, which was incredibly valuable. So we will let you know as far in advance as we possibly can when that meeting will occur. And we beg your presence at that meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Hess.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? I think, are we close to adjourning, or is there anything else, Mr. Hess, that you need from us?
No, I presume there are no comments or questions from the public at this point. Yeah, otherwise they would have raised
Brad,
their hand.
we have a hand raised by someone from the public, it looks
Oh.
like. Yeah. So is now the time to take that space for the public?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Mary Louise, I see that your hand is raised. I'm going to unmute you, and then you unmute yourself and begin to talk. You'll have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to ask a question I've asked before. If you spoke about it, I didn't hear it. Where is a proposed location for the State of California Historic Landmark plaque that is presently near the present location of the flagpoles in the plaza itself? The plaque is about the plaza and the house. And I'd like to ask again what thought has been put into that. And I also express misgivings about the arcade, its size and its location. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hess.
If I may, thank you, Ms. Days, for your question. There are numerous plaques throughout the plaza currently, and in the front of City Hall. And we want to make sure that care is taken to address every single one of them. And that is one of those topics that we will be discussing with HLC to make sure that we are doing enough to both commemorate, to highlight. There are different styles that can be done if it's a new plaque. We want to make sure that that's done really well. Right now, we don't have that in our plan because, again, we want to make sure that attention is drawn to it and drawn well. So thank you for the reminder. It is not off of our radar by any means, but it's just not ready yet.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Hess, that reminds me as well that we had talked at different times on this committee about honoring our Chumash history. And that might also be something that HLC, I'll just say now, I'm hoping will consider and give recommendations on as well.
Yes, Madam Chair, the art and historic plan really hasn't even commenced yet. It's been talked about. We have done some due diligence, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done with that too.
Thank you. Well, if there are no other public comments and no other committee comments, Mr. Drury, is your...
Oh, no, I didn't mean to do it.
Okay. Then I believe that we're ready to send this on to HLC and are looking forward to hearing back their recommendations and continuing work on this. And with that, I believe
Fantastic.
we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.